Welcome to my channel. My name is Adina. I'm an intuitive astrologer. In this video, I want to go over the astrology for Canada. I'm going to pull up the chart for the full moon in Aquarius and the new moon that we are having in Leo, the middle of the month. So I'm going over the energy for August 2023 because it's going to be really powerful and significant. We have a lot of Uranian energy, and we currently have Uranus in Canada's 11th house. And the 11th house really represents how we connect to other people online, social groups. So I believe we will hear a lot more about censorship in Canada, and which we have been, especially when it has to do with how we connect online and the information that we get online. Now, there's also a lot of energy going on in Canada's second house. We have Venus retrograde in Leo, and Canada has Leo in the second house, and the second house represents money, finances, material possessions, which this can all have to do with mortgages, interest rates, all of that. The second house can also have to do with housing. And I know for me, I'm seeing a lot of homelessness where I live. And I recently actually just watched a documentary about BC going into all of the homelessness in BC and addiction and all of that. It's really crazy. And so I really think we'll hear a lot more about that. I think we're going to see a lot more about that. And the prices are just crazy right now. Like, I know it's not just Canada, I know it's everywhere, but I know Canadians are struggling. And so hopefully for my fellow Canadians, you really get some information from this and guidance. So thank you so much for joining me. And if you align with my energy and enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit the post notification bell so that you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Post the monthly forecasts anymore. They weren't really getting a lot of views. So I thought that, every once in a while, I'm just going to pull up the charts for Canada and just strictly go over the energy for Canada, just to keep my fellow Canadians updated. Now, I want to know that before we get into the charts, Canada just experienced its Mercury return and Mars return. And so Canada has its Mercury placement in the second house of money and finances. And it's really interesting how we're starting to hear a lot of that. And I think we will start to hear a lot more over the next year and a half. Now, the Mars return in the third house, which we are seeing a lot of parents standing up about the school system. This is going to be a thing over the next year and a half to 2 years. When we have planetary returns, this really signifies and indicates a brand new cycle associated with the themes and topics of the planet and the house. And so it's really interesting how we are seeing a lot of parents standing up about the school system, about their children. We're going to see a lot more of that. Okay, so let's pull up the first chart so I can kind of go through all the energy with you. Okay, so here's the chart for the full moon in Aquarius. So which is on August 1st, we have this full moon in Canada's 8th house. The 8th house has to do with money coming in from outside resources. This can be loans, this can be interest rates, this can be taxes, inheritance, anything along those lines. And so as you can see, we have the sun in the second house, we have the moon in the 8th. There's a lot of energy right now in Canada's money houses. And then not just that, but we have Venus retrograde in Canada's second house. Venus also has to do with money, finances, material possessions. And so there is a lot of energy right now around, the direction that Canada really wants to take as far as money, digital currency, everything along those lines, housing, mortgages, interest rates. There's a lot here around finances. Now, one thing I also wanted to point out is we've been in this really tight T-square between the nodes and Pluto. And so, right now, the South node, the nodes just entered Aries and Libra back in July 17th. And so with the South node being in the 4th house, the 4th house represents home, family, property, and the 11th house represents leadership, authority figures, government. So it's really interesting how there's been this, especially when it has to do with the family and parents standing up for their children, starting to speak up oh my gosh, about the school system. And then Pluto, where there's this, there's just this conflict kind of with families and then the authority figures. Pluto is what's really transforming all of that. So I thought it was interesting. We will be moving through that until January 2025. So again, just an energy to be aware of. Now, at the time of this full moon, we're going to have Mercury conjunct Mars in the third house. This is where I believe we will hear a lot of information about money, finances. There's going to be information also about just communities, information about how we connect to one another in communities and our neighborhood and social groups, and also how we connect online, because we have Mars forming a trine to Jupiter. Jupiter is not that far away from Canada's natal Pluto. And actually, Jupiter is going to conjunct Canada's natal Pluto in August and retrograde in September. I believe, yeah, like by the end of August, I know Jupiter reaches 15 degrees. Jupiter is going to station retrograde at that 15-degree point. And when a planet stations retrograde, it becomes not stations retro when it stations in general. So when a planet stations retrograde or stations direct, it's very powerful because it comes to this like stop and just exudes this energy, and it just becomes extremely powerful. So the fact that we have Jupiter, on Canada's natal Pluto, we're going to hear a lot more about power structures and just censorship online, because the 11th house represents, social groups, how we connect to one another, online connections. We're going to hear a lot more about censorship online, which is something that we've been moving through, where I know everybody is in all of the countries, but I know that for Canada, we've been moving through this like really kind of strong censorship online, or at least they've been trying to implement that. So I think we're really going to hear a lot more about that. Now, Uranus is also the ruler of this full moon. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. And then again, Uranus being in the 11th house. So there's just like so much energy for Canada around how we are connecting to one another, people standing up. And we are starting to see more people stand up for, what they believe in. They're starting to be more vocal, especially with, the parents and just what people are thinking and feeling. They're starting to express that a lot more. So we're definitely going to see that. But I think that with also the Mercury and Mars energy that we're having, this is where we're going to see a lot of craziness online. And I think we will all, not just Canadians, but I think we will all see a lot of craziness online. A lot of shocking information, I think, will be coming out because of that Uranian element. And then August 23rd, Mercury stations retrograde, and Mercury will be retrograde in Canada's third house. So Mercury doesn't come exact to Mars in Canada's third house because Mercury stations retrograde and then Mars enters Libra. But it's just that the entire month of August, Mercury and Mars are just moving through Virgo together. It's trining Jupiter, forming a trine to Jupiter, forming a trine to Uranus. And so not just Canadians, but all of us in general, we're moving through a lot of just hearing a lot of shocking information, and then a lot of action being taken, whether it's with the people, whether it's with the leaders, authority figures, but we're moving through a lot of this energy. So I just wanted to kind of bring this to your awareness. On August 5th, Mars is actually going to conjunct Canada's natal North Node. And the North Node represents the direction. Like the nodes are very faded, very karmic energy. But when we're talking about like a country, this is, the direction that Canada is moving in as a whole, the people, the government, just the direction that the country is moving in. But with this energy, it's like, I think we're going, and Mars represents taking action. I really do believe there's going to be some sudden action taken, with it can be community, neighbors, people, but I think that we will see just some sudden action taken with something. I think it's just something to be aware of. There can even be some sudden action taken with this online stuff because of the trine to the 11th house. But then there's also this square to Venus, Canada's natal Venus. There can be this sudden action being taken censorship. And, the 12th house represents isolation, self-undoing, and then again, money, finances, because Venus is there. The 12th house doesn't represent money and finances, but Venus being in the 12th house, again, that's a lot about our money and finances and the direction. Yeah, you know what? The first 2 weeks of August, I would not be surprised if we hear a lot of action being taken, or if they're starting to implement stuff around finances. Now, I have heard, and I don't know how accurate this is, of a blackout. Do your own research. Don't take my word for it, because again, I don't know too much about it, but I have heard of a blackout where they're going to shut everything down. They're going to shut the internet off. And we're not going to be able to, the bank, something's going to happen with the banks. And so, I mean, this can definitely happen at this time. The energy's there to support that. At this month for sure, if that was going to happen. So just something to be mindful of, but always like do your own research. I always do my own research. I don't necessarily believe it. I mean, I do for like reliable sources, but I also have this passion for knowledge and learning. And so I'm always researching and stuff, but I always recommend like do your own research, learn about this stuff if it interests you. But this month we have a lot of energy around finances, money, mortgage, insurance rates going up, like a lot of stuff around that. And so I think we just need to be mindful of that. Now, also too, because we have like, Mercury conjunct Mars, we're going to have Mars conjunct the North Node. There's a lot of energy here in the money houses. Oh yeah. And then another thing I wanted to mention too was we have Saturn up here in the ninth house. The ninth house can represent like long distance travel, but I just recently heard about Canada's borders. Like just a lot of people coming in, and I just heard from a few different sources, again, do your own research, but I just heard that all of the people coming into Canada had to actually sign a document stating that they would vote for JT. And I don't know how accurate that is, but I've also heard that he's kind of rushing for like an election or something. So yeah, I don't know. That was just some other information I kind of came across, which was interesting because Saturn being in the ninth house, opposing Mercury, it's like we're hearing kind of this information. Now let's pull up, because I think this pretty much all of the energy I really wanted to go through with this. So now let's pull up the new moon chart. Okay, so here is the new moon we are having in Leo, August 16th. So this new moon is in Canada's second house, not that far away from Venus retrograde. It's going to be square Uranus here. We will have Jupiter still on Canada's natal Pluto. So there's a lot here, again, around money, finances. That's why I say the entire month of August, there's just a lot of energy around money, finances, material possessions. And because Venus is retrograde, it's like changes that are kind of in the works. Like there's definitely changes being made to it. And then when Venus stations direct September 3rd, it's like that's when we may hear of it's like there could be something going on in the background too that we don't necessarily know about. And then as soon as Venus stations direct, we get wind of it, we hear about it. So Venus stations direct September 3rd, so you can write that date down as well. Now at this point, we have Mercury moving closer to Mars. And so, I've also felt too with this energy, like whatever information is presented, there can be a lot of people kind of standing up, protesting, talking about it, voicing their opinions, being very vocal, because there's a lot of that Mercury energy. And Mars is, taking action. So with this energy, it's not necessarily like just saying it, but actually like doing it. So again, just something to kind of be aware of. And it's trining Uranus, and Uranus brings disruption, chaos, confusion. Like there's just a lot of energy, a shock. There's a lot of shocking information coming out in August, like not just in Canada, like generally speaking, for the month of August for everyone. There's a lot of shocking information. And we've been like even hearing a lot about this, like aliens on the news. Like, there's a lot of shocking information coming up that's kind of just having people question and confused, like, what's going on here? Like, what am I hearing? Like, there's definitely a lot more of that the month of August. And then, like I said, in September, Jupiter is going to station retrograde on Canada's natal Pluto in the 11th house. So we need to watch for, August, September, about what's going on online, what they're trying to implement online, censorship. We also want to watch for, I think I already mentioned, I think we're going to see a lot more parents like protesting about the schools because that's like a third house thing as well. Um, and then like with these nodes, it's like just like a lot of this energy with families and authority. And then with Pluto here, it's like even to like Pluto can also bring what's beneath the surface to light. So like the agenda they really want to move in is coming out. People are kind of starting to realize that. So, so that's pretty much all the energy for this chart. So I hope this video helps kind of give you an idea of the energy that we're moving through, give you a little bit of a heads up for what's coming energetically. I think that this is going to be a huge time for shocking information, people taking action, whether it's authority, whether it's the people. I think that we will have a lot of changes with our money, our finances. I think we're going to hear a lot about that too, even with like Venus retrograde and all the Mercury energy and Mars. There's going to be a lot of information and there's going to be a lot of taking action with a lot of different things. So I think we need to be mindful of that. I think we need to be aware, keep our eyes and ears open, and yeah, with online censorship, I think might be another big thing too. So we do just want to watch for, what's going on. And so I hope that you find this video helpful, and thank you so much for joining me, and I will connect with you in the next one.